Have you ever fought an infection with some type of a penicillin, or worn makeup without worrying whether or not you'd go blind? Well, then this is thanks to the animal testing done to ensure that substances are safe for human use. Animal testing has been the foundation for many scientific breakthroughs that have changed the way we live our everyday lives. However, animal testing has some significant downsides. Animal testing is not an ideal method because it is misleading and unreliable, is the least favorable method of experimentation, and is cruel and inhumane. First, we'll discuss why animal testing is untrustworthy. Animals are poor test subjects, so results of animal testing can be incredibly misleading and unreliable. The issue with using animal models for human disease is because of the metabolic, anatomic, and cellular differences between humans and other creatures. Therefore, medicine and other chemicals tested in lab may not be safe for everyday use. For example, the drug thalidomide. Thalidomide was given to pregnant women in the 1950s to prevent nausea. However, it caused more than 10,000 births with limb reduction defects. After thalidomide was taken off the shelves, tests on pregnant rodents were conducted and they all resulted negative, with the rodents only being sensitive to extremely high doses. Another issue with the difference between humans and animals is that potential cures are ignored because animals reacted adversely. For example, aspirin is unsafe for some animals, but is commonly used to relieve pain and inflammation. Another example is the drug tacrolimus. Tacrolimus is used to prevent organ transplant rejection, but it was almost shelved because of unfavorable test results. But misleading data is not the only con of animal testing. Animal testing is not ideal because other methods of experimentation exist. One such method is in silico or computer simulations. It's based on the principle that the effects of a chemical depend on the characteristics of its molecules, making actual testing unnecessary. By finding that relation, toxicity of any new substance can be predicted with a computer. Another method, in vitro, or test tube experiments, relies on making a large enough sample from a cell, therefore making testing unnecessary. A commercially available in vitro test is MatTek's human skin equivalent, Epiderm. It's comprised of a sheet of human skin cells growing in a petri dish. They are then exposed to various chemicals and washed off after a period to test its toxicity. And according to a study by the Humane Society International, in vitro tests can cost up to tens of thousands of dollars less than animal testing. And yet another method is microdosing. Microdosing is when human volunteers are given drug doses too small to produce an adverse effect and are then analyzed with methods that can detect substances in extremely low concentrations. According to Jeff Watts, a writer in the British Medical Journal, animal testing could be completely phased out if more focus and concentration was put into these extra methods. However, the most prominent reason that animal testing is not ideal is because it is cruel and inhumane. According to the New England Anti-Vivisection Society, painful protocols like maiming, blinding, burning skin, electric shocking, and withholding of food and water are used in some types of animal experimentation. An example of such a test is the Draize test, a test designed to study the effects of substances on rabbits' eyes. The rabbits are placed in restraining stocks and their eyelids are pulled apart. A substance is then put into their eyes and they're observed over 3 days to see if any irritation occurs. They are then killed if they've been blinded, or reused after a washout period if there is no permanent damage to the eye. Another example is the smoking experiments conducted on various animals. An example of this is the University of California, Davis, where mice spent 5 months in whole-body inhalation chambers to assess 3 levels of smoke exposure to lung tumors. And yet another example is the Institute of Biological Research and Technology in Athens, Greece. Tobacco smoke carcinogens were forced into rats' lungs through a tube or an abdominal injection over a 16-week period. Now, animals are supposed to be protected under the Animal Welfare Act, but the Act excludes mice, rats, and birds, which compose about 95% of the animals used in lab experiments. And for the animals that it does apply to, it only covers the standards for housing, feeding, and handling, and does not prohibit any kind of experimentation. Instead, the Act requires an oversight committee to approve research protocols, which is composed by the research facility itself. This can create a bias, which allows most of the proposed experiments to be approved, regardless of the amount of pain or distress it causes the animals. And if it's deemed necessary, researchers can even withhold pain medication so that the results are more accurate. So in conclusion, animal testing is not ideal because it is misleading, has more desirable alternatives, and is inhumane. And even though animal testing has been the foundation of many breakthroughs, many changes still need to be made in order to give animals the basic rights that they deserve. And though some people might say that animals don't deserve rights because they're not humans, animals are sentient beings and can feel pain. They should therefore be protected from situations where they have to suffer and be treated with common decency. Thank you.